Greetings, metaphysicians. This is episode 123, Think for Yourself. And this one's been coming on for a while, if I'm being honest. I sure hope that you're already thinking for yourself, but in this episode, I go into the spiritual implications of not thinking for yourself and then choosing to think for yourself. This has spiritual connotations, so enjoy the episode.
You're listening to Let's Get Metaphysical. This podcast explores the spiritual and metaphysical world through the experiences and opinions of the host and those interviewed. It should not necessarily be seen as direct endorsement or personal advice to our listeners. We encourage you to use your own discernment, judgment, and intuition regarding anything you learn from this show.
Let's get meta.
Welcome to the Let's Get Metaphysical podcast. I'm your host, Renata Maniaci, here to remind you that you are a soul that is on an incredibly long journey. And for some reason, this lifetime, you chose on some level to incarnate into a humanoid body here on this planet, this third density material planet, lovely planet Earth. Make the most of it. This is season 7, Heaven on Earth, and this is episode 123. Think for yourself. And I'm just going to jump right in. Are you ready? Let's get meta. Masters and angels, I request your presence, guidance, and support through this episode. Please help these words to be useful to all listeners on their evolutionary journey. Please let me know the truth, speak the truth, become the truth, and be the truth. And please let this episode reach whoever needs to hear it. Thank you with gratitude and full faith. Bless creation. Think for yourself. This topic has been going round and round and round in my mind lately, and I wanted to do an episode on it. And it's not the first time that I've talked about this topic. A couple seasons ago, I started season 6 with 2 episodes, The Battle for Minds, part 1 and 2. 2 of my favorite episodes, honestly, and that was off the heels of my last episode that I had a guest speaker for the moment. Maybe I'll have guests in the future. And that was with Dr. Norma Milanovic, who wrote The Light Shall Set You Free. And in that interview, she brings up and mentions how people are very mind controlled in the world right now, filled with propaganda and all kinds of just brainwashing. And it's really easy to do that. It's really easy just to watch something and just believe it. And we do that not even just with news and what we read that's supposed to be informative to us, but also with movies and TV shows and podcasts. And we as humans have this tendency that even if we're watching a fictional movie, it gets imprinted on us somehow. And we have a tendency to believe whatever that content was, or that it could be possible, or that that's the right perspective of it, the right bent. And rarely are we encouraged to think for ourselves anymore. Even at the highest levels of academia, which is pretty troubling. So why am I bringing this up? I am a huge advocate of transparency and thinking for yourself and making your own judgments. And I say that at the beginning of every single episode I've ever done. I have a disclaimer read by my good friend Dave, and it encourages you to think for yourself and use your own judgment and intuition with anything that you learn or hear from this show. And I'm sincere about that. I haven't heard many other such disclaimers or otherwise shows, news, media, content that encourages you to think for yourself or is inspiring you to ask questions about the things that you hear. And I don't know why that is. I mean, I have ideas of why that is. It seems like people are easier to control if they all think and believe the same things, right? This is a really important topic right now as we are seeing the news narrative that we've all held in high esteem or has just been a staple of our journeys growing up. Turn on the news, you hear what's going on. All of that is falling apart right now. People are pulling back the curtain on who is funding the news and who is directing and dictating and controlling what is said, what is shared with the world. And as that continues to happen, we see more and more people starting to question the truth, the reality of the convictions that they once held or the things that they thought to be true. And that's great. And this is the Let's Get Metaphysical podcast. Why am I talking about this? This is everything. This goes hand in hand with spirituality and metaphysics. The search for truth. If we've been wrapped and blinded by falsehoods and surrounded by falsehoods and lies for our entire lives, we cannot know the truth of the universe. We cannot know the spiritual truths that literally make this world function, make the universe function, hold everything, the planets, the stars up where they are. We don't have the full story. We're missing pieces of the puzzle. So I would just love, because it's so hard. You only, in this human body, traditionally, you only get your perspective, right? You get your one perspective. I'm so interested to see what other people are feeling and thinking right now about everything that's going on with the news and the indictment and Twitter and just lies being exposed. To me, it's so obvious what's happening is like this unraveling of this long-held control mechanism of what people learn about and see. But I'm so curious what other people are seeing with this. And I'm concerned, not concerned, that maybe that's the wrong word, but I guess maybe I am concerned about young people. It's really difficult to see when you're in it, when you're in school. And now I can't even imagine growing up right now, always having had a phone, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, and all these apps that, frankly, I'm too old to know about at this point. How are these youth being taught to think for themselves? This really interesting thing seems to be happening where everyone who is in counterculture, right, like that was kind of fighting the man and like was oppressed or a victim somehow, all the corporations, the government, big pharma, everyone is on those people's side. So they are no longer oppressed. There's not this victimhood because everyone with control, power, and money is supporting those causes right now. And they're no longer a counterculture. They're no longer alternative. They're no longer out there. They're just becoming part of the mainstream. And what is out there is everybody else. And that's really interesting. That's a really interesting thing. And I am rather excited about this moment because it seems like those control structures that everyone's kind of realizing have been in place for quite a while are failing, are falling apart. I'll give you an example that I just saw recently. On Twitter, they labeled NPR as government-funded media. Okay. And NPR is furious about this. But on their own website, they say that federal funding is essential for them to continue their work. They say it. It's essential. And so when Twitter and Elon Musk labeled them government-funded media, that's true. There's no lie there. There's no pulling wool or anything. It's just that's what it is, and that's as stated by their own website. Now, love Elon or hate him, I'm still fairly neutral. I try to stay neutral as much as possible. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. Love him or hate him, that's a fact that NPR's own website confirms. And for me, I find it useful to know that NPR is in part funded by the government, because then you can see that the government is a stakeholder. And everyone has biases and different perspectives and their own agenda for whatever greater means, mostly unseen ways and reasons for doing things. And I'm a big advocate of transparency. I want to know who's funding you, because then I can think for myself and make that my own judgment on whether I'm going to first listen to your content and second, trust your content, right? I want to see your agenda. I want transparency for all of this stuff. And I think that we are moving more in that direction. Maybe slowly, but what could be wrong with that? Really, what could be wrong with just an open, transparent agenda? If you have nothing to hide, that's good, right? But if you don't, it makes it seem like you have something to hide. And why would you be hiding something? So thinking for yourself, I'm hoping this is a trend. I'm hoping that we're not so far gone in some respects. And I still catch myself doing this, is seeing something and believing it without questioning it. And I have to consciously remind myself, oh, wait, why do I believe that? What are the sources? Can I do my own further research to confirm that, etc., etc., etc.? But this is a huge part and parcel of developing and honestly just reaching into your own soul, because our souls do hold all the answers already. If you can learn to tune in with yourself, with your body, and with your soul, you will be able to intuitively know if something is right or wrong, true or false, or a little bit true and mostly false, or a lot true and just a little bit false, or anywhere in between. But we are not taught to do that in school. Very few parents know how to do that. Some do, but it's not common yet. These basic things like discerning truth and being open and transparent and honest are not necessarily common right now. And so we get to work at it. But we can. And if you're listening to my voice, if you're hearing my voice right now, you have to have some, at least minuscule interest in metaphysics, some minuscule interest in spirituality, and perhaps your own evolution. You can discern what is true if you tune in to yourself. And there are other ways of discerning truth as well, which I won't get into here. But that society seems to be at a point where more and more people are starting to actually question the validity of the things that they are being told and shown and just plastered with what to believe and what to think and what opinion to have. This can only be good for our evolution as a species, as a consciousness, as sentient beings moving forward on our soul's journeys. When more and more people are questioning the validity of what they are seeing and hearing and being told to think and how to react and whose side to be on and what perspective to have, that is going to get us closer and closer in touch with our souls, our discernment, and ultimately help us to elevate in our consciousness as a group. People are doing this every day individually, and just like, what examples can I give? Just like you reach a certain tipping point, right? You reach a tipping point, and when enough individuals, let's say, start thinking for themselves, that's going to tip the balance. And we've been out of balance for so long on this issue that nature must balance it. That's how it works. That is a universal law. You cannot go so far one way, and in this case, into untruth, into lies, into falsehoods, into control, into brainwashing, into propaganda, into mind control, and not go back the other way to balance it out. It's a law of nature. That is happening now. And so I'm here to encourage you all to take the reins of this aspect of your life and really start to think for yourself and start to understand and question the information that you're receiving. Now, knowing my audience, many of you are probably already doing this. Okay. But maybe you have friends and family members and colleagues and workout buddies who aren't. And I think that we can all do our part to encourage our people, those around us, to think for themselves. Because what is wrong with that? What is wrong with what I'm saying? Thinking for yourself. This campaign that has been going on, I don't know how long. Some say 50 years, some say 60 years, 80 years, of just completely kind of blinding us to the reality of how our planet is run, what's going on. It's been really successful. It's been a successful campaign to do that. And it goes by different names. Some people call it Project Mockingbird. 1984, the book talks about this. I mean, it lays it all out. And now I sound like a conspiracy theorist. Great, here we go. But that's okay. Just being open about this. We are at this moment that is not only important for our conventional 3D material earthly lives right now, because thinking for yourself and knowing the truth on that level, very important. But we're also at this point where we can do that and have it move us into the next level of consciousness for our soul and our evolutionary journeys. That's pretty cool, right? And here, how do you do this, people? It's not that difficult. For example, if all of the news sources, let's say all of the traditional, I'm doing the quotations with my fingers right now, all the traditional quote unquote trustworthy news sources, if they're all saying the same thing and all giving the same opinion on something and the same perspective and encouraging you to do X, whatever X is, whether it's vote for a certain candidate, support a certain war, take a certain, we'll say, medication into your body, if everyone that has the power and the resources and the money is telling you to do X, you should be wondering why. That was kind of a pun. I didn't do that on purpose. But you should be wondering why. It's kind of a formula now. If you see that every legacy media outlet is saying one thing and asking you to believe, do, or put your resources into one thing, you should be thinking for yourself. And you should be asking, why are they all wanting me to do that? I remember last year, was it last year? Yeah, it was last year, around this time. I was in Chicago for work, and I was walking down Michigan Avenue, and I've been to Chicago. I'm from the Midwest. Been there millions of times, and there were inexplicably blue and yellow lights everywhere on every building and every whatever. There were signs and lights and everyone and flags. And of course, I'm talking about the Ukrainian flag everywhere. Do you know how many wars there have been in the last 50 years that we have never even known about? But this is the one where the entire legacy media immediately sides with one side. There have been countless wars that we've never even heard about because it was not important to the agenda, whatever and whose ever agenda that is. But suddenly, everyone in the US is sporting a Ukrainian flag on their icons, on their social media, on their buildings, on their X, Y, and Z. Overnight. Did you ever ask yourselves why that is? Why? I'm not saying I have the answer, but that's an example. It's an example of when you think for yourself. That's an example. When everything, every piece of content, every woke corporation, everything is pointing you in one direction and there is no opportunity for any public dissent or discourse about that. That is when you think for yourself. And that, when you do that, is when you reach new levels of consciousness. So I am going to leave it there for today. I think I've made my point. Hopefully. Think for yourself. That's my point. Hopefully I've made it. I want to take a moment to do a plug. I don't do plugs very often, but as many of you know, I am passionate about light-filled, uplifting, inspiring, universally true content. I don't see enough of it. Most of the things that I see are not that at all. And I watched something recently. Something just came across my path recently that I wasn't looking for, but it happened, that was all of those things. Light-filled, uplifting, inspiring, and had the essence of truth. Not that every single thing in each episode or anything was all completely true. It's not that. Truth has an essence to it that we can all feel. And also, what's interesting about this series is that it is free. You can go to the website and watch it for free. So this is uplifting, inspirational, light-filled content you can watch for free, as opposed to the openly satanic, dark content that you have to pay for on places like Netflix and other streaming services. Now, I'm not knocking Netflix or other streaming services. I'm pointing out that there is an alternative that I've become acquainted with recently that is free, that has truly incredible, uplifting, light-filled content. And that is at angel.com and Angel Studios. I know, right? I talk about the angels, I talk to the angels, I pray to the angels, and this place is called Angel Studios. Go figure. No affiliation, interestingly, but their series, The Chosen, really hit me somewhere. It really did. I'm not any kind of religion. I'm not Jewish. It's a Jewish story, really. I'm not Catholic or Christian. I don't consider myself part of any specific spiritual philosophy like Buddhism or Sikhism or anything like that. But I think that if you are a spiritual seeker, if you're a seeker of truth, this series will hold something for you. I think the only thing it wouldn't hold something for is atheists. And even they might get something out of it. So if you want something really amazing to watch, go to angel.com and watch The Chosen for free. Get through the first couple episodes and see what you think about it. So that is my plug. And I also wanted to announce we have bonus content for this episode. I used to have bonus content for every episode, but as you know, I've been traveling the last few months. I've held off on the bonus content. We will have bonus content for this episode. It's going to be a clearing of anything that we are allowed to clear that is getting in the way of you thinking for yourself. any lingering propaganda, brainwashing, thought control tactics, anything that we are allowed to ask the angels to help remove, that is what's going to happen. For bonus content, if you are interested in that clearing, you can find it at patreon.com/letsgetmeta. I'll leave it there. Thank you for listening. Stay positive, stay safe, think for yourself, and stay meta.
The Let's Get Metaphysical podcast is an Up and Awaken production and is produced and hosted by Renata Maniaci. Our intention is to raise the vibration of the planet by sharing, validating, and normalizing spiritual and metaphysical experiences. If you are ready to raise your vibration, you might enjoy our free Let's Get Meta Master Clearing. To receive the Master Clearing or to learn more about the podcast, visit letsgetmeta.com. We like to share metaphysical stories and answer spiritual questions on the podcast. If you have a metaphysical experience you would like to share or have a spiritual question you would like to have answered, please send an email to info@letsgetmeta.com. The Let's Get Meta podcast is inspired by angels and supported by angels. If you would like to be an angel donor to the podcast, visit patreon.com/letsgetmeta. Thank you for listening. Stay meta.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.